Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. We open with a Lamborghini pulling up at a highway sign so the passenger can vandalize it. She's on her way to the east coast of America where a nationwide cross-country race called the Cannonball Run starts in a few days. Car enthusiasts gather at a hotel in Connecticut to race nearly 3,000 miles until they reach the finish line in California. The event was started to protest the 55 miles per hour speed limit back in the 70s. However, run-ins with police will slow them down, so our teams must use their wits. Roadblocks have been set up by the police, so a mechanic named Victor crashes into a ditch, but he joyfully emerges as his alter ego Captain Chaos.
Been a cop long?
His partner in the race JJ hates the whole superhero gimmick and now needs a new vehicle to run the cannonball. They use a light aircraft to search the area and pull up in the middle of the street so that Victor can grab some beers for the journey. Next, they're shown searching for a car on a boat for whatever reason, but JJ gets distracted by a couple of ladies and they wind up crashing. He almost dies and needs to be taken to the hospital, while Victor only has a small injury to his finger that hurts when he points. As they speed through traffic, it gives them an idea to disguise their identity to authorities by driving an ambulance during the cannonball. Meanwhile, at a bookies, another racer named Fenderbaum bets that himself and his partner are going to win. He says that God is on their side and will be their co-pilot, but Jamie Blake says that their Ferrari is only a two-seater. They dress like a couple of priests so that the law will go easier on them, but Blake's a hornball that almost blows their cover. Another cannonballer is Jackie Chan, who didn't even get a new name but had a race swap to Japanese. I guess they figured that a pair of Chinese guys couldn't drive a Subaru that his partner Michael shows off to the display girl. Again, woman attractive, man distracted, and the girl sends the high-tech vehicle reversing into the wall but fortunately doesn't damage it. Elsewhere, a Sheik who you wouldn't even trust to drive your goat around the oasis speeds past some camel jockeys in his Rolls Royce. Mr. Falafel's bodyguards are terrified of accompanying him in the race, and upon arriving at the hotel they throw up their couscous. A country music singer and Steelers quarterback enter in a '76 Chevy Chevelle Hawaiian Tropic replica. They unfortunately flooded in a pool for no reason, just so we can get a shot of some babes in bikinis, but Mel and Terry somehow dry it off. At the place where the racers meet, an activist named Foyt is speaking about how much he hates cars when the pair crash the Chevy into the building. Foyt spends the whole movie disrupting the Cannonball Run but is almost hit by a competitor when his bike gets away from him in the hotel. The wealthy executive Mr. Compton has hired the world's greatest motorcyclist to accompany him, but Sheiky's put on some weight in his retirement. The pair dress like newlyweds to hide their identities and spend most of the run wheel standing because of the busty bride on the back. Arriving at the hotel without any working brakes is a couple of tow truck drivers named Batman and Mad Dog, who come crashing into the foyer. JJ and Vic arrive with an ambulance and paramedics uniforms and spray a wounded Foyt with a little water to the balls, and he's good as new. They then go searching the bar for somebody to cart around in the back as a live patient, and of course Marcie and Jill are their first choices. They're surprised to learn the girls are also cannonballers when JJ spots Pamela across the bar looking all perky and approachable. She's a tree lover here with some hippie group supporting Foyt, so JJ introduces himself as a humanitarian and she eats it all up.
I'm into trees.
Pam doesn't even know what the Cannonball Run is, but Victor comes up to say that he found a doctor, so she walks away. Nikolas Van Helsing is a proctologist as JJ smells and agrees to join the Cannonball Run for a mere $200. Another member of the race arrives in an Aston Martin with a girl on his arm in a self-parody of 007. He signs as Roger Moore, but for this film is named Seymour and is shown threatening his mother with a clown version of his police pistol.
You're too Jewish.
When night falls, Brock Yates hosts the event, having invented the real-life Cannonball Run, and basically just tells everyone avoid the cops. The king of cool can't help himself from telling Marcie and Jill that he's from a liberal wing of the church, hoping to get into their pants. Blake gets shut down by the cannonballers, who have their time cards stamped on the east coast before departing in intervals towards the west. As everyone leaves, Pamela assists Foyt in taking down their plate numbers to report to the police like a couple of do-gooders. They somehow crash, and when the ambulance comes across them, Pamela's fine, but JJ scoops her up while leaving behind the badly injured Foyt. It's not until Pam sees the doctor, who looks at her with lust in some of his eyes, does she realize that they kidnapped her. When police pull them over speeding through New Jersey, JJ fails to convince the hostage to go along with their ruse. Van Helsing suggests drugging her instead and gives himself a small injection because she can't be the only one having fun. The troopers check the van, but he's got Pamela under happy gas and somehow manages to bluff them out of a citation. He claims they're driving Pam to a specialist in California. Then when they go about the race, the medication causes him to pass out. Nearby, Marcie and Jill are pulled over for speeding, so they use their womanly ways to avoid a ticket by unzipping. That's all it takes, and this man is helpless against their power, so lets them go, saying that the next cop might not be as understanding. In the morning, however, the girls get pulled over again, but the officer also gets hypnotized, so he lets them go, saying the exact same thing. In Ohio, JJ checks on Pamela to make sure Van Helsing hasn't killed her, as he just keeps giving this poor girl injections. Fender and Blake catch up and hail the ambulance so that one can distract them while the other lets down their tire. Blake tries to bless the patient, whatever that means, but takes one look at the hills have eyes in the back and goes limp. When she regains her senses, Pam goes to the bathroom with Van Helsing, who says that once you've seen one, you've seen them all. As they leave the gas station, JJ tells some local cop that the two dressed like priests are armed deviants, so he pulls them over. The delay is enough for the ambulance to get a nice lead while Fender's called small, but it's not as bad as later when JJ calls him a chocolate monk. A few miles down the road, Foyt has helped the police in setting up a roadblock and has several of the races locked up. Seymour makes it through by rotating the plates on the Martin so that Foyt won't recognize him as a cannonballer from the hotel. When a cop tries to pull them over, he uses the Martin's smoke screen and oil deployment gadgets to skid him off the road. The cab soon begins filling up with smoke, however, but Seymour just continues to talk about himself like he's been doing the whole time.
That's beautiful.
When the ambulance arrives at the roadblock, they convince some truck driver to hide the van under a tarp on his trailer to make it past. The roadblock's ruined anyway when Foyt puts a van in neutral and it rolls into a patrol car, causing quite the bit of destruction. JJ jumps in the back with Pam, who's surprisingly calm for someone who says she thought they were going to gangbang her. She learns her kidnappers are simply cannonballers, while we learn that Pam doesn't wear underwear because she tells Victor when he asks. He reveals that Captain Chaos was developed in school to beat up bullies, and Mrs. Stockholm says that she'll be his friend. Elsewhere, the Sheik pulls up to pick up some lamb burgers and shish kebab, but becomes enamored with a waitress. Falafel asks if she's ever been part of a harem before, then promises to return for his desert flower once the race is over. While driving through Arizona, Marcie and Jill get pulled over by another cop, so they unzip their get-out-of-jail-free cards. Unfortunately, the trooper already has a nice set of her own, so it becomes a standoff, but the ladies are just let go anyway. They're probably given a speeding ticket or something, then reach some construction in California where a few cannonballers gather. The Japanese team of Chinese drivers have remained relatively low-key, using the car's stealth tech to sneak past cops at night. One of the mornings, Jackie decides to watch some Western smut on the dashboard and just trusts that the Subi's navigating. The computer directs them to Texas instead of New Mexico and somehow leads them into the middle of a dune buggy race. To escape, they deploy the Subaru's secret weapon, which isn't merely a jet engine but allows the entire car to fly through the air. Mad Dog and Batman also go flying when they forget the pickup has no brakes and jump a well-placed ramp over a moving train's flatbed. All of the groups converge at the construction site, and Seymour goes through 5 women over the course of the race, though I don't know where he's pulling them from. A gang of bikers show up called the Crucifiers, led by Wyatt from Easy Rider wearing his Captain America jacket. Along with his bald-headed companion, they begin bullying Compton and his beautiful new bride, so Captain Chaos comes to the rescue. The cannonballers join the brawl and Seymour threatens a man that he's Roger Moore, but the bikers never heard of her and knocks him out. Blake gets saved by Van Helsing with a sedative before the wacky doctor begins drinking his own supply. Marcie and Jill run in but immediately get dragged into a shed by some horny men, so Captain Chaos arrives to snip some tips. He serves up some vigilante justice while Pamela stands around taking photos of something other than trees for once. The whole thing is basically just to show off Jackie's moveset, as he's also the one to have the leader hearing those heavenly blues. JJ defeats the bald biker then, as Captain Chaos flutter his cape in his face as everyone flees to the cars when the road opens up. Somehow Chaos's powers allow their van to overtake everyone, but the tow truck drivers have crashed in Redondo just before the finish line. Everyone gets out of their cars and runs the remaining distance, but JJ tackles the other cannonballers, allowing his partner to win. Or at least he would have if some lady didn't scream that her baby is drowning, so the superhero jumps to the rescue while Marcie punches the winning ticket. Apparently her baby was a dog, so JJ is furious that he abandoned the race and tells Victor that he's had it with Captain Chaos. That's fine because Victor has always wanted to call himself Captain USA instead, and how can you stay mad at this lovable lug? Some of the impounded racers show up later in a cab with Foyt, who was stuck in a phone booth for a time but must have found a way out. He concedes his defeat, so is offered a cigar and told to use the lighter in Seymour's rigged to the gills Aston Martin. When the ejector seat doesn't work, James Bond tries it himself and is launched into the water just 2 weeks before For Your Eyes Only was released.
My business is not worth a...
Everyone celebrates with champagne, and we get 2 different angles of JJ spitting it out for whatever reason. And the movie ends.